An act of indecency and a haunting that follows. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the Poetry Discussion playlist, but number two being the Horror Fest 2024 playlist here on the channel, where in 31 days of October, we will have 31 horror subjects covered on the channel. Last year we did October, and this year we have Horror Fest. This is a poem that comes to us from sort of a dark guy, Alexander Pushkin. It is called The Drowned Man, and it reads as such. Children running to Izba, calling father, dripping sweat. Daddy, daddy, come, there is a dead man caught inside our net. Fancy, fancy fabrication, grumbled off their weary paw. Have these imps imagination? Dead man, really? Ya ha ha. Well, the court may come to bother. What'll I say before the judge? Hey, you brats, go have your mother bring my coat. I better trudge. Show me where. Right there, Dad, farther. On the sand where the netting ropes lay spread out, the peasant father saw the veritable corpse. Badly mangled, ugly, frightening, blue and swollen on each side. Has he finished in storm and lightning, or committed suicide? Could this be a careless drunkard, or a mermaid-seeking monk, or merchandiser conquered by some bandits, robbed and sunk? To the peasant, what's it matter? Quick, he grabs the dead man's hair, drags his body to the water, looks around, nobody's there. Good. Relieved of the concern, he shoves his paddle at a loss, while the stiff resumes his journey down the stream for grave and cross. Long the dead man as one living rocked on waves amid the foam, surly as he watched him leaving, soon our peasant headed home. Come, you pups, let's go, don't scatter. Each of you will get his bun, but remember, just you chatter, and I'll whip you, everyone. Dark and stormy it was turning, high the river ran in gloom. Now the torch has finished burning in the peasant's smoky room. Kids asleep, the wife aslumber. He lies listening to the rain. Bang! He hears a sudden comer knocking on the window pane. What the? Let me in there, master. Damn, you found the time to roam. Well, what is it, your disaster? Let you in? It's dark at home. Dark and crowded, what a pest you are. Where I'd put you in my cot. Slowly, with a lazy gesture, he lifts up the pane and... What? Through the clouds the moon was showing. Well, the naked man was there. Down his hair the water flowing, wide his eyes unmoved. The stare, numb the dreadful-looking body. Arms were hanging feeble, thin. Crabs and cancers, black and bloody, sucked into the swollen skin. As the peasant slammed the shutter, recognized his visitant. Horror-struck, he could not but mutter, "Blast you," and began to pant. He was shuddering awful chaos all night through stirred in his brain, while the knocking shook the house by the gates and at the pane. People tell a dreadful rumor. Every year the peasants say, waiting in the worst of humor for his visitor that day. As the rainstorm is increasing, nightfall brings a hurricane, and the drowned man knocks unceasing by the gates at the pain. It was translated by Genia Guerreri from Alexander Pushkin. So what do we have here? We have a story of a man whose children found a corpse in the river, in the ocean, wherever it was. I'm assuming the ocean. And they bring him out to see the corpse. And he really doesn't want to have responsibility because there's a dead person. Of course, the police are going to question you. There's not a 0% chance that the authorities will figure you were at fault. You were the murderer. There's a non 0% chance that happens. So he looks around once he gets to this dead body, and there's no one there. So he pushes it back out to sea. He pushes it back out to wade away. Later that night, it's raining. Now, that is important because rain, water, is the element in which the body was found. The element in which the body was found has followed our peasant home. And then there is a knocking at my chamber door. And it turns out, more than the rain had followed him home, more than the element, more than the water had followed our peasant home, the spirit of the man who was left followed him home as well, and returns every year to visit him. One thing that's worth noting in the text itself when we start looking at things that have happened here, soon our peasant headed home. Come, you pups, let's go, don't scatter. So he goes home and he calls his children to him. Now look, each of you will get your bun. I'm not mad, okay? But remember, just you chatter. Look, I'm not mad, but if you tell anyone about this, I'll whip you, everyone. So he's very particular with his children. Look, I'm not mad. I understand this thing just happened. I'm not punishing you. You'll get your food. But if any of you tell anyone about this, I'm going to beat every one of you. So he's very particular with his children. Don't go talking about this. Don't go telling about this. We need to keep this quiet. Flash forward after the haunting. People tell a dreadful rumor. Every year the peasant, say, waiting in the worst of humor for his visitor that day. Someone talked. Someone said something, otherwise the people wouldn't know why this peasant was in such bad humor once a year. Wouldn't know why this guy had gone off his rocker. So someone has been there to spread the rumor, to spread the news, to spread the story about this thing. Now, the next thing we need to talk about here. So there's leaks in the boat, right? Someone is talking somewhere. When we look at what has happened here, the obvious question from the peasant once he finds our victim is the question of whether or not he was a victim. Look, there's all sorts of things that could have happened here. He could have just drowned. He could have been fishing and got caught in the storm. He could have been struck by the lightning and not even drowned. He could have done it himself. He could have been drunk and fallen into the water. He could be a bit of a loon, a monk searching for a mermaid. He could have been a victim of crime. All of these things are possible. All of these things are just a little bit different. No matter what the case, no matter what the case is here, our peasant, the man who finds him, is not the one who did it, is not the reason that the deceased is deceased. So why haunt him, right? Why haunt our peasant here when our peasant here hasn't done the evil thing? Well, one of the things that comes up oftentimes that in horror stories is the idea of something that is not evil, is not wicked, but simply isn't decent. It doesn't seem fair, right? The person who's not going above and beyond to do the decent thing is the one who ends up haunted here. It doesn't seem fair. But I think that we all feel a little bit of justice to it. If this was a wandering soul, this person, so you believe in souls, you believe in spirits, you believe in hauntings and ghosts, etc. Normally the idea there is that there is some connection between the spirit of the thing and the place where the bad thing happened. Well, for someone who was lost at sea, for someone who had drowned in the ocean, there's not a place there. There's no haunted house for that. There's no place of consistency. The water is constantly moving. There is a sort of a stationariness to the place where you lost your life. But that water is gone the moment it happens. It's moved on to someplace else. You're not talking about a resting place on a rock. You're talking about a resting place in the ocean. So the spirit would travel with the body. That spirit found itself someplace to rest. That spirit had found itself someplace to find justice. But the peasant in question, and I'm calling him a peasant, I don't know what else to call him, right? Farmer, perhaps, because the izba in which he lives is a countryside house normally associated sort of with farming. The farmer had found the man and could have put his spirit to rest. Instead, not doing so, the spirit has decided just to go ahead and rest with the man. This is a sort of quid pro quo. You did not do the decent thing and let me rest. I will do the indecent thing and not let you rest either. When you start talking about stories of hauntings, it's strange how quickly the specter, if you will, of justice comes up. It seems that we have some idea of justice connected to peace. We have some idea that without justice there is no peace, without peace there is no rest, rest in peace. And because there is no justice, because there is no peace, the rest will not come. Where does that come from? How deeply rooted in us is this thing? When you talk about genres, science fiction, this sort of a new thing, right? But not really, because the moment that we had the capacity to invent things, people were already talking about inventing things that never were. People are already writing those stories. When you talk about other genres, like horror, those things too go back as far as literature itself. That there is no new thing under the sun, that there are no new stories, maybe these ideas are themselves older than even we realize. We have diagnosed them in the common day, but it seems they've always been there. Is justice necessary for rest? That seems to be a big question in the human subconscious. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, there is poetry on the channel every Monday, and there is horror on the channel all the livelong month. So consider hitting the subscribe button to come back for more, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.